Hey, Gina, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm very well, thanks,
Oh,
Carla. How are you doing?
good. I am doing fantabulous. I so enjoyed your performance in this film. I love watching actors who totally encapsulate the screen without saying very little, and it's all right here in the face. And you're a master at that.
Thanks.
You're an absolute master at that. But having said that, this theme of this film centers around one's sexuality. And I was just wondering how you felt about your husband being someone who was conflicted about his sexuality versus what society expected of him.
I think it's a really potent point because you meet these people in the 1950s when they're young, and this triangle of people who are drawn together by love. And as you touched on, they're torn apart by prejudice. The repercussions of what they do to one another and what happens to them when they're young indelibly marks their lives. And we meet them 4 decades later when there is a catalyst to try and look to the past to try and repair, perhaps. And I think when I started to look into this, you can't, obviously I know it academically, but when you look about what was happening in England at that time and what was happening to the gay community in England, particularly to gay men, and how that affects everybody, so they all become victims of that. It's potent. And I thought, well, this is fantastic because we need to understand that it ain't that long ago, that we've made progress, but we haven't made nearly enough progress. And it's always threatened with regression. And we need to keep that in mind. And I know it academically, but I felt it in my heart when I started to really explore this.
Yes, and I could feel it in your performance as Marion. Marion is a little bit of a quiet fire. She lets stuff kind of simmer inside, but when she decided she needed to speak up and speak out, she did so fabulously. How close are you with Marion?
I'd like to hope that I have that kind of courage, but I'm not sure I have. So I don't know if I'm like her at all. But where I can relate is that as a woman, I wasn't, obviously I'm older than, I wasn't born in the 50s, I was born in the 60s. But as a woman, I understand how we are brought up not to be on the front foot in terms of being vocal. I understand that dynamic very well. And so that's something that I feel in common with Marion.
I'm glad that you brought that up because women of that era were expected and taught to behave a certain way. Mm-hmm. And Marion makes the conscious decision to be very forthcoming in her attempt to make this marriage work no matter what.
I think that there's a huge amount of pressure. Sorry, you were saying. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I think there's a huge amount of pressure on all of them, obviously. But the pressure, if we're just talking about Marion, her pressure is to make this work because she's prejudiced too. And she's ignorant for sure. I mean, about so many things. She's incredibly young. You've got this this person hungry for life, but she's young and her experience is nil. And the pressures of society mean that she is pushed into that corner.
And I was trying to ask questions that weren't revealing. I think we did a fantabulous job, and I think that is a really great point to end on.
It's really lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too, Gina. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right. Bye.